Now, when I was younger, I was what we would call a 10-year student at a 2-year college. And because I had spent so much time trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I found out that I was just 2 credits short of graduating with a degree in psychology at Del Mar. But I had been going there for so long, I was just taking classes that interested me, but I also got used to how everything at Del Mar worked. You see, at the time, whenever it rained, the sidewalks would start to flood. Between the science building and the library, there was a road, and that would start to flood. If you walked farther down the sidewalk towards the street, the driveway was higher that you could actually cross over there without getting your feet wet. But that night, I took my class, and as I was walking out, it was raining. There was a group of people in the hallway just watching the rainfall because they didn't want to get wet. So I did what anybody else would do, because that night, I knew that it was spaghetti night at home, so I wasn't going to miss that. It was a Monday night, and I was going to go watch wrestling, so I wasn't going to miss that either. So even though it was not raining hard, the sidewalks were, as usual, flooded with all these very deep puddles. But remember, I've been going there for almost 10 years. I knew where to walk. So I started walking. When it came down to one puddle, just walk along the edge. When it was time for another puddle, a hop, skip, and a jump. Where the sidewalk was higher, my feet were not going to get wet. But as I was walking down to the parking lot to get to my car, to go home, to eat spaghetti, to watch wrestling, and prepare for work the next day, I started hearing splashes. You see, every jump I did, a few seconds later, I'd hear the splash of somebody else jumping. As I was walking past a building, I looked up and saw the reflection of a young girl, a young lady, just watching me. And I didn't know her, she didn't know me, she wasn't in any of my classes, but she put trust in me to keep walking. She knew that somehow, if I knew where all these things were going, she was not going to get wet. But then came the final challenge, the flooded street between the science building and the library. Now, the street was very deep, but the speed bump, for some weird reason, was higher than the street. Now, I had the foresight to wear boots that day, and I knew that, as all things in the city, they were doing road work, so that high driveway was under construction. And I looked down farther and I saw a group of people trying to walk across, but it was very messy. And if you fall, you're going to get wet. Now, if I walked into the street, it was going to go up to my knees. If I walked on the speed bump, it was just going to go up to my ankles. Once again, I was wearing boots. I wasn't going to risk going farther down and taking a bath. So I jumped on the speed bump and started walking, but the moment my ankles sunk into the water, I hear, "Oh, heck no!" That girl was not going to take the risk. She decided to walk farther down and risk getting wet. So I just shrugged my shoulders and I proceeded walking to my car. As I was getting in, I heard screaming, and there was that girl along with about 3 or 4 other people falling, and they got an ice bath up to their necks. I could only laugh because I was thinking, if she had trusted me a little bit more, the worst she would have gotten was just her shoes wet. But she had a doubt, and she sank. Now here's the question I have for you. Have you ever thought about those times of doubt that we should always have in God, and yet we start to sink because we should put our trust in him, but at the same time, we hold ourselves back. I was watching a video recently where there's this dad trying to teach his daughter, not to trust boys. So he says, just fall back, don't look back, I'm gonna catch you, trust me. And as she's falling back, he moves and lets her hit the ground, and she says, I thought you were gonna catch me, and that's when he says, that's why I said you should never trust a boy. But Jesus doesn't do that. Yet it's in our nature, although we know we can trust him, when we're going to fall back, we're still going to look because we have those doubts. And yet for some crazy reason, Jesus still asks for our trust. And this gospel story that we heard today, it's the same as what we hear. You see, at this point, Jesus is very active in his ministry. He's teaching. He's performing miracles. His disciples, he's sending them out on missions. But notice that this is right after he's fed the multitude. He's done a great miracle. And he's also taught. But as he dismisses them and tells his disciples, go on ahead, I'll catch up, he goes by himself to pray. He does this all the time after something so great and so wonderful. He goes off to pray, but instead of a desert, he climbs the mountain. And afterwards, he goes to catch up with his friends. And his friends are having a hard time recognizing him. That's even our problem if you think about it. How often is Jesus there, but we don't recognize him? We don't recognize him in the miracles that God gives us every day. We don't recognize him in the kindness of others. Remember how I tell you that the moment we receive the Eucharist, we become that living tabernacle. We're holding Jesus to go out and carry him to everybody else. And yet, people have a hard time recognizing him. But yet, here's Jesus saying, hey guys, don't be afraid, it's me. And then he does something amazing. Even though there was doubt among his friends, among his disciples in the boat, as soon as they recognize him, one of them, Peter, says, invite me to come out to walk with you. I want to walk on the water with you. And Jesus says, come. Even in times of doubt, Jesus is inviting us to come to him. Even when our faith is strong, Jesus invites us. Jesus is always giving that invitation. And Peter starts to walk on the water. But as it is in our nature, he gets scared and he starts to sink. And that's very similar to our lives even today. Even though we know we have complete trust in God, we start to sink because our own doubts creep in. But notice, even then, rather than being upset, Jesus still holds out his hand. He still pulls Peter up and even says, why did you doubt? Don't be of little faith. And that is still the answer he gives us now. He's always going to hold out his hand. Not just to invite us to walk with him, but he's always going to invite us to say, take my hand, I've got you. And it's been like this since the very beginning. Jesus does not pull his hand away. Jesus will come to the ones who need him. And he's always saying the same thing. Don't worry, take heart, it's me. Have no fear. Now, imagine, if you will, and it doesn't matter what time it is, whether it's 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. like it was with the disciples, that's the time of the fourth watch. But imagine, no matter what time it is in your life,
how Jesus is holding out his hand to you. He's inviting you. He continues to invite.
He continues to perform that miracle so that way we can walk with him. All you have to do is have faith. And when you have faith, you can also start to see him more. Imagine the homeless person who sees Jesus for the first time when somebody goes up to them and gives them a sandwich. Imagine us in times where we are at our most troubled. Jesus shows up in the form of our friends and family to offer us comfort. Imagine the look in somebody's eyes when you hold out your hand to say, "Walk with me, I will help you up." And you are Jesus to the person in front of you. Once again, Jesus is performing these miracles every day. It's just up to us to open our eyes to see him. It's also up to us to put aside our doubts and actually live up to those words, "Jesus, I trust in you." The only thing stopping us is us. So, you have choices. Do you trust enough that you might get your ankles a little wet, or you have doubts and sink up to your neck in water? Do you have trust where you can just do a hop, skip, and a jump and stay dry? Or will you be afraid of a little rain and a little water? But regardless, Christ will be there. And when the time comes, it's up to you to decide, will you take the hand that he's offering you? Will you accept the invitation to walk with him? And some people might say, "But Father, I feel too old," or "Father, I can't walk anymore." Don't worry, Jesus is going to take care of it. "Well, Father, I don't want to get wet." Jesus will make sure you're dry. You just have to have faith. You have to have faith in him to get you through the worst of it. In the end, I made it home. My ankles were a little wet, but I was wearing boots. I got to eat a really good plate of spaghetti. And I got to watch a title change hands. But most importantly, I stayed dry. How are you going to stay dry? How can you make sure that you're not going to sink? You already know the answer. We've had over 2,000 years to think about it, I think. But when you can live up to the words, "Jesus, I trust in you," you will get through safe, warm, and dry, instead of sinking up to your neck in water. And the last I checked, 15 years later, they're still doing construction on those roads. I know. The work that they've done at the school, the sidewalks have been fixed, so I doubt I could actually make it through if it was raining again. I wouldn't know the spots to step in anymore. But I know this: when you pay attention, you can actually see Jesus. I know this: when you have no doubts and can come to him when he invites you, and the invitation is always there every day of our lives, you will not sink. On the off chance that you fall into the water, the good news is he's gonna pull you up. You just have to be willing to accept and live up to the words, Jesus, I trust in you.